June 9, 1944. Ramatelli Airfield, Italy. Captain Wendell Pruitt of the 332nd Fighter Group climbs into his P-51 Mustang for the morning escort mission. The bomber formation he's protecting will strike rail yards near Munich. The mission is 1,000 miles round trip, 6 hours in the air through heavy German air defenses. Pruitt is 23 years old. He's been flying combat missions for 8 months. He has 3 confirmed kills, 3 German aircraft destroyed in aerial combat. He's part of the Tuskegee Airmen, the all-black fighter group that the Army Air Forces created reluctantly and expected to fail. They haven't failed. The 332nd has the best bomber protection record in the 15th Air Force. Bomber crews request them by name. The red painted tails on their P-51s mean safety. Today's mission goes smoothly until the return flight. Over northern Italy, Pruitt spots a German destroyer in the harbor at Trieste. Enemy warship, target of opportunity. He radios his wingman and dives to attack. At 300 miles per hour, 50 feet above the water, Pruitt fires his 6.50 caliber machine guns into the destroyer. The ship's anti-aircraft guns fire back, tracers filling the air around his aircraft. Pruitt pulls up, circles, attacks again. On his third pass, the destroyer explodes. Pruitt's gunfire hit the ammunition magazine. The ship breaks apart and sinks in minutes. When Pruitt returns to Ramatelli, intelligence officers confirm the kill. A German destroyer sunk by fighter aircraft gunfire. It's an extraordinary achievement. Fighters don't typically sink destroyers. The Navy awards ship kills. The Italian civilians in Trieste witnessed the attack. They've endured years of war, German occupation, Allied bombing, privation, and fear. The destroyer's destruction means one less German warship threatening their harbor. They celebrate. News spreads through Italy. The Red Tails sank a German warship. The black American pilots protecting Italian cities from Luftwaffe bombers just destroyed enemy naval forces. Italian civilians and partisans view the 332nd as liberators and protectors. Pruitt receives the Distinguished Flying Cross for the destroyer kill. Italian partisans send thank-you letters to the squadron. French forces award the unit the Croix de Guerre for their service protecting Allied operations. In November 1945, Pruitt returns to St. Louis, Missouri. He's a combat veteran, a decorated pilot, a man who sank an enemy warship with machine guns from a fighter plane. He can't eat at most restaurants in St. Louis because he's black. He can't work as a commercial pilot because airlines won't hire black pilots. He can't vote in local elections because Missouri restricts black voting through poll taxes and literacy tests. Italy called him a hero. France gave him medals. America gave him segregation. This is the Tuskegee Airmen's experience, proving themselves in combat over Italy, earning international recognition and gratitude, then returning to a country that treated them as second-class citizens regardless of their service. If you want military history about the devastating contrast between honor abroad and discrimination at home, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. The Tuskegee Airmen's return destroyed many of them psychologically. The 332nd Fighter Group begins combat operations over Italy in February 1944. Their initial mission is bomber escort, protecting B-17 and B-24 formations, striking targets in Italy, Austria, Germany, and the Balkans. Luftwaffe fighters attack these formations, trying to shoot down bombers before they reach targets. Escort fighters prevent these attacks. The 332nd approaches this mission with tactical discipline. They fly close escort, staying near bomber formations, rather than chasing German fighters away from the bombers. They engage only enough enemy aircraft to break up attacks, then return to escort positions. This philosophy produces remarkable results. No bomber under direct 332nd escort is ever lost to enemy fighters. 0. Over 200 escort missions, the record is perfect. Italian civilians benefit indirectly from this protection. The bomber formations the 332nd escorts are striking German targets, military installations, supply lines, industrial facilities. But the Luftwaffe isn't just defending German targets. They're also attacking Italian cities, bombing infrastructure, terrorizing civilians. When the 332nd shoots down German fighters, they're preventing those fighters from attacking Italian targets later. When they protect bombers, they're enabling strikes that weaken German forces occupying Italy. Italian partisans and civilians understand this. The Red Tails aren't just American pilots. They're protectors helping liberate Italy from German occupation. The relationship between the 332nd and Italian civilians develops throughout 1944. Pilots stationed at Ramitelli Airfield interact with nearby towns. They buy food from local farmers, socialize in cafes, attend local celebrations. Italian civilians treat Black American pilots as honored guests. This is revelatory for pilots who've experienced American segregation their entire lives. In Italy, they can eat anywhere, socialize with anyone, be treated as equals. Captain Lee Archer describes the experience. In America, I couldn't eat at most restaurants because of my skin color. In Italy, restaurant owners invited me to their tables. They wanted to meet the Red Tail pilots. They treated us like heroes. It was the first time in my life I felt fully human. The contrast with American attitudes becomes increasingly painful. Pilots receive letters from home describing continuing discrimination, lynching, violence against Black Americans. Meanwhile, they're being celebrated in Italy as liberators and protectors. This is the story of pilots who earned gratitude abroad they never received at home. If you want military history about soldiers caught between two worlds, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. These pilots' experiences radicalized them about American racism. The 332nd Fighter Group's combat record over Italy establishes them as elite pilots. Between February 1944 and May 1945, they fly 15,533 sorties and 1,578 missions. They destroy 112 German aircraft in aerial combat and 150 on the ground. They sink or damage numerous ships, destroy locomotives and trucks, and attack ground targets across the Mediterranean theater. Individual pilots achieve ace status, 5 or more confirmed kills. Captain Lee Archer, Lieutenant Clarence Lucky Lester, and others shoot down multiple German aircraft in dogfights over Italy and the Balkans. Captain Wendell Pruitt's destroyer kill becomes legendary. Sinking a warship with fighter aircraft is extraordinary,
Destroyers have armor, anti-aircraft guns, and trained crews. Pruitt attacked at wave-top height, hit the ammunition magazine through sustained, accurate fire, and sank the ship. The Italian partisans operating around Trieste witnessed the attack. They report it to Allied intelligence and send messages thanking the pilot. Italian newspapers published stories about the black American pilot who sank a German destroyer. Other missions earn Italian civilian gratitude. When German forces occupy Italian towns, the 332nd provides air support for partisan operations. They strafe German convoys, attack supply depots, and protect partisan positions from Luftwaffe attacks. Italian partisans coordinate with Allied forces, providing intelligence about German positions. When the 332nd attacks targets partisans identify, the relationship strengthens. The pilots are directly helping liberate Italian communities. The French Fourth Army, operating in Italy alongside American forces, awards the 332nd the Croix de Guerre in 1945. The citation notes their extraordinary courage and aggressive fighting spirit in protecting Allied operations and attacking German positions.
French and Italian officials present the awards in ceremonies at Ramitelli Airfield. European military officers salute black American pilots, acknowledging their achievements as equals. The pilots receive formal recognition from foreign governments, while their own country minimizes their accomplishments. The disconnect is profound. Europe treats them as heroes. America treats them as problems to be managed through segregation. The relationship between Tuskegee airmen and Italian civilians creates lasting bonds. Pilots stationed at Ramitelli develop friendships with families in nearby towns. They're invited to homes for meals, included in celebrations, treated as honored guests. Language barriers exist. Most pilots don't speak Italian. Most Italians don't speak English. But human connection transcends language. First Lieutenant Roscoe Brown describes being invited to an Italian family's home for dinner. They had very little. The war destroyed their economy. But they shared what they had with us. They insisted we eat with them, sit at their table, be part of their family. In America, I couldn't sit at white people's tables. In Italy, I was family. Italian women interact with black American pilots without the racial restrictions that exist in America. Dating relationships develop. Some pilots form serious romantic relationships with Italian women. These relationships face no legal barriers in Italy. Interracial relationships are socially acceptable there. Italy doesn't have America's obsession with racial purity and anti-miscegenation laws. Italian families accept black American pilots as potential sons-in-law based on character, not skin color. Some pilots marry Italian women. These marriages create complications when pilots return to America. Interracial marriage is illegal in many states, socially unacceptable in most communities. Couples must navigate legal restrictions and intense prejudice. But in Italy, these relationships are normal. Italian civilians judge the pilots by their actions. They're defending Italian cities, risking their lives in combat, behaving with honor and dignity. That's what matters to Italian families. The pilots also connect with Italian children. They give kids chocolate and gum, American luxuries unavailable in war-torn Italy. They play with children in village squares, teach them English phrases, show them their aircraft. Italian children grow up with positive associations with black Americans. They learn that skin color doesn't determine character. They see their parents treating Black American pilots with respect and friendship. This shapes their understanding of race for life. After the war ends, correspondence continues. Italian families write to pilots who've returned to America. They share news about rebuilding their lives, express gratitude for liberation, maintain friendships formed during the war. Some pilots return to Italy years later. They visit families who hosted them during the war, see children they played with, now grown, reconnect with communities where they experienced equality and respect. These return visits are bittersweet. Italy represents a place where they were valued for their achievements rather than judged by their skin color. Returning to Italy means escaping, temporarily, the discrimination they face in America. The 332nd Fighter Group returns to the United States in October to November 1945. The pilots are combat veterans with distinguished records. They've flown hundreds of missions, protected thousands of bomber crew members, destroyed enemy aircraft and ground targets. They've proven everything the Army Air Forces said black pilots couldn't do. They return to segregated America. The transition is devastating. In Italy, they were heroes. In America, they're black men subject to Jim Crow laws. Captain Wendell Pruitt returns to St. Louis. He wants to continue flying, perhaps as a commercial pilot. Airlines won't hire him. Commercial aviation is whites only in 1945. He applies for positions as a flight instructor. White flight schools reject him. He eventually finds work as a laborer. Pruitt, who sank a German destroyer from a P-51 Mustang, works as a manual laborer because America won't let him fly commercially. The psychological impact destroys him. He becomes depressed, drinks heavily, struggles with the disconnect between his achievements and his opportunities. In 1945, at age 24, he dies in a crash while flying a civilian aircraft. Accident or suicide, investigators never determine. Other Tuskegee Airmen face similar struggles. They're qualified pilots with combat experience. Commercial aviation is expanding rapidly in the post-war boom. But airlines won't hire black pilots regardless of qualifications. Some find work as flight instructors at black colleges with aviation programs. The pay is minimal, the facilities inadequate, but it allows them to fly. Others leave aviation entirely, finding work in fields that have nothing to do with their military training. Lieutenant Lee Archer applies to work for major airlines. All reject him. He eventually builds a successful business career, but aviation, his passion and expertise, remains closed to him because of his race. The military offers some pilots permanent commissions in the newly formed U.S. Air Force. The Air Force is still segregated in 1947, but it provides flying opportunities. Some Tuskegee Airmen accept these commissions, continuing military careers despite discrimination. President Truman's 1948 executive order begins desegregating the military. Implementation is slow, but it eventually opens more opportunities for black pilots. By the Korean War, the Air Force operates with integrated units, and some Tuskegee Airmen serve with distinction in that conflict. But civilian aviation remains segregated for decades. Major airlines don't hire black pilots until the 1960s and 1970s. The Tuskegee Airmen who wanted commercial aviation careers wait 20 years for opportunities that should have been available based on their qualifications alone. The contrast with their reception in Italy makes this especially bitter. Italian civilians treated them as equals. Italian families invited them into their homes. Italian women dated them without legal or social restrictions. Italian communities honored them for their service. American communities restrict where they can live, eat, work, and socialize. American laws prohibit interracial marriage in most states. American employers refuse to hire them for positions they're qualified for. American society treats their military service as irrelevant to their citizenship status. Some Tuskegee Airmen emigrate. They settle in Europe, France, Italy, even Germany, where they face less discrimination than in America. They build lives as expatriates, visiting America occasionally, but considering themselves European residents. The pilots who stay in America become civil rights activists. They've proven Black Americans can fly complex aircraft, handle combat stress, and achieve at the highest levels. They demand equal treatment based on demonstrated capability. Their experience frames their activism. They're not asking for special treatment. They're demanding the rights they earn through service and proved through achievement. If they can protect bomber formations over Germany, they can vote in Alabama. If they can shoot down Luftwaffe aces, they can eat at lunch counters. The military service doesn't persuade racist Americans. White Southerners who opposed black equality before the war oppose it after the war. The Tuskegee Airmen's achievements don't change minds in communities committed to maintaining racial hierarchy. But the pilot's experience changes them. They know they're as capable as any white Americans. They proved it under fire. They won't accept discrimination quietly when they know it's based on lies about their inferiority.